Look, it's a privilege to be with you. I have driven here all the way from Vermont South in the leafy eastern suburbs, but I do love the beach, and it's a privilege to come and hang out with you all this morning for a little bit. I do really appreciate this church, largely because of my friendship with Wayne and his long-term interest in Rite Mentoring in me, friendship that's developed over a period of time. And also the way that he's galvanised your congregation's support for Rite Mentoring in a really interesting season of growth and change for us. I have to admit, I was wondering as I was preparing for today what kind of angle I'd take. One possibility would have been just to run through a bit of an update on what Rite Mentoring is doing these days, and particularly at Beaumont Secondary, which is the school that is in your local community, and one that members of your congregation support through prayer, through financial support, and through cheering us on. So I will give a little bit of an update, but I have to admit, when I read through, Wayne sent me a copy of the run sheet, and I read through the readings, and the Gospel of John reading it sort of caught me and got me thinking. And I was just praying and reflecting on how I might bring something relevant to you all today. So what I'm going to do is weave a little bit of a biblical reflection with my own personal journey with Rite Mentoring and an update. I'm going to try and do those three things all in about 15-20 minutes. Is that okay?
Sure.
If it crashes and burns, I know I'm in a friendly place and you'll still probably give me a cup of tea at the end. All right, so I'm going to start. You've just heard the Gospel reading. It's an amazing story, actually, at the early stages of Jesus' ministry. So I'd like to just read it again real quick, because I like the scriptures. I value the scriptures, and I sense that God continues to speak through the scriptures today, even in 2025. All right, so I'm just going to read from John 1:43 onwards. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathaneal and said to him, "We found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nathanael said of him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Well, come and see." Jesus saw Nathanael coming towards him and said of him, "He is an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered him, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered him, "Because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Truly, I say to you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." I'm just going to start by sharing a little bit about my year. This time last year, I was really, really struggling. I was going through a pretty hard time. Rite Mentoring was growing, but we were facing some really significant challenges. We were short of funds, and I was feeling pressure to lead an organisation that a friend of mine had started, to lead it well, and to lead it in response to the growing demand from the community for school-based programs, mentoring programs, and yet we just didn't seem to have the funding that we needed to sustain our staff and to say yes to programs. I felt like I was letting the board down, and a lot of the efforts that I was making, I was working super hard, just didn't seem to be paying off. Some of my close relationships were under a bit of strain as well. I remember saying at one point to my family over dinner, I'm trying to be transparent, I'm really struggling and I need a little bit of extra support at the moment. I said that to my board as well. As recently as January 2025, I wrote in my journal that I'd had a dream. It wasn't a good dream. I was being chased, and it was symbolic of feeling oppressed and just feeling really under pressure. I was probably at a point as low as I can really recall being. I don't know about you, but life can be hard. In a congregation this size and just looking around the room, I'm guessing that there are people here experiencing hardship. Maybe you have experienced loss and you're grieving at the moment. Maybe you've had a background where you've experienced some difficult times and your trauma is actually part of the way you cope with life every day right now. Maybe like me, you have aging parents who you're caring for and you're seeing them change and your relationship with them is changing and your concern for them grows. Maybe there's financial distress, maybe there's relationship breakdown. There's a number of different ways that we in contemporary life can feel overwhelmed and we can really struggle. Maybe it's just a sense of anxiety from local and global events. Turn on the TV, read the news. There's very little good news that's coming out of the world at the moment. It can feel really hard. The good news is, though, that we're not invisible to God. God sees us. In our reading today, we find that Jesus sees people. Jesus saw Nathaneal. Jesus saw his community. You probably know that Jesus arrives in history at a time that's particularly interesting. Israel is occupied by Rome. A lot of people are entrenched in poverty. The temple system is corrupt and people are suffering. Enter Jesus, and Jesus starts in the typical rabbinical fashion, selecting and choosing some followers, disciples. He chooses Philip, and Philip immediately calls his brother Nathaneal to come and meet Jesus. And I love that, come and see. It was an invitation to actually eyeball Jesus and to see for himself. And ironically, Jesus sees Nathaneal deep into his heart. And they had this extraordinary exchange. We've just heard it read, and I read it again, where Jesus exercises particular gifts of insight. I mean, I grew up in a Pentecostal family, so when I hear this sort of story, I'm immediately thinking about the gifts of the Spirit and word of knowledge, and how did Jesus know, and how did Jesus see this guy, before he actually saw him in person. It's an extraordinary exchange. I am interested to know, though, when you hear this story, and when you hear Jesus' reference to angels ascending and descending, does that remind you of another story in the Bible? A few nods? Yeah, it immediately reminded me of another one. And I looked it up, and then later on, and I didn't cheat, I knew the story, didn't know where it was though, and I looked in my little Bible column and it told me it's the story of Jacob in Genesis 28. I'm going to read this to you. It's really, really interesting and quite relevant. Another place in the Bible where angels are ascending and descending. Have a listen to this. This is a story about Jacob. So Jacob is Isaac's son, one of his sons. Remember Jacob and Esau? There's quite a bit going on in this story. Jacob's just run away from home because his brother wants to kill him. Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran, and he came to a certain place and stayed there that night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. The Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and the north and the south. And in you and in your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep, and he said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. I don't think it was a coincidence that Jesus referred to this story when he was speaking to Nathaneal. Jesus regularly refers back into the text when he's with his disciples and when he's teaching, and he does it for a reason. Just like Nathaneal, whose life we don't know too much about, but we know a little bit about the conditions of the people of Israel in occupied Roman territory. Jacob's in trouble. The text says he's in the middle of, what does it say? A certain place. The Hebrew idiom is actually in the middle of nowhere's nowhere. For us it would be like whoop whoop. Jacob leaves home and he just wanders into the desert. This is symbolic of his life at the moment. Jacob's in a transition moment. He's struggling. His brother hates him. He has to leave home. Sure, he's on a mission to sort of head to find a wife and start a new life. But he's at a point of significant change, and it's not a happy partying at home. Jacob's a bit of a fascinating character, isn't he? Because he's one of the patriarchs. His name later gets changed to Israel. We know a little bit about the story if you're familiar with the Bible. But he heads into an uncertain future. There's nothing holy about the place that he finds a place to sleep that night, and yet God turns up. Jacob is so excited when he meets God that he renames the place Bethel, meaning house of God, and he pledges allegiance to God. His faith is turbocharged as a result of this encounter with God. God sees Jacob, and Jacob is not the same. Not only is the encounter of the dream amazing, but the content of the dream is phenomenal. In the dream, God speaks a blessing over Jacob, promising him land, a large family, understatement of the decade, blessing for others, and a guarantee of God's presence to be with him. And remember, this is Jacob who's actually fleeing for his life. He's being chased by his brother. Circle back to Nathaneal. Nathaneal is amazed at Jesus, just like Jacob was amazed at God. Nathaneal's amazed not only that Jesus can see further than Superman, but that Jesus knows him even before meeting him. Jesus sees Nathaneal just like Jacob, and the encounter with Jesus supercharges Nathaneal's faith and draws out a response from Jesus, a promise of more. God meets people at their lowest point and speaks blessing and hope. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
God met me in the last 12 months, giving my faith a boost. God, through prayer, through his grace, through a series of amazing circumstances, has poured resources into Rite Mentoring. I'm now in the enviable position where I've got to decide how to spend the funds that we've got really wisely. I've had the opportunity to build our staff team, to invest in people and systems and the organisation in a way that will allow us to grow sustainably and say yes to more schools. God sees me, and I found the strength to continue to lead Rite Mentoring and ensure that we see young people. We're paying it forward. We see young people, we get to know them, and we offer them hope. That's what we do. That's our core business. The young people we work with are facing hardships of their own. At all of our schools, young people that we work with are struggling with their self-worth. They're anxious. Some are involved in crime. Some are experiencing family breakdown and are struggling to deal with the implications of that. Some are lonely. Some are getting into trouble. Some are disinterested in school, find school really, really challenging. Some find their friendships really stretched. Some are behaving in ways that are really concerning to teachers and to their families and to the community. Boys and girls right across Melbourne are really struggling. And that's the group of young people that we zero in on, we see, we walk alongside, and we get to know and we serve. We're actually amazed at the way God's turned up this year and given us funding and opportunities to work with new schools, including Beaumaris Secondary for the second year, but also some other new schools that we haven't worked with in the past. What about you? Where are you right now? What do you need? God sees you and he knows you. And he has a plan to mobilise you to be a blessing to others. Don't give up. If you're going through hardship, don't give up. I encourage you to keep trusting, just like Jacob did, just like Nathaneal did, just like I've been doing. Keep trusting. Turn your eyes toward Jesus and the resources that he has. There's more for us. There's more for me, and there's more for you. I want you to imagine if we began recognising the activity of God in the ordinary spaces of our lives in ways that we're currently not fully appreciating, what that might mean. Imagine if there was so much more for us to engage in, if only we could take our eyes off our circumstances and our hardship, the things that we're struggling with, and put our eyes onto a God who sees us and knows us, loves us, and has a plan for us. I just want to end my talk, or as John was saying as I was walking in, my lecture. Thank you, John. Just a couple of stories of God's grace and the kinds of things that he's up to in and amongst Rite Mentoring. And I'll start with Beaumaris Secondary College. If you do want a complete update of our program, you'll have to come to Rotary's dinner when I potentially get an invitation to speak there at some point to report on the year once the year's finished. But we've got a program with 12 to 13 Year 9 boys this year. We head in on a Tuesday and we spend a period with them. It's been a fun year. It's a great group of boys. It's a bit chaotic, Year 9 boys. It's exactly what you'd imagine. All sorts of conversations, all sorts of kind of laughs and jokes. And yet in the group, there are boys that do have real needs and real challenges, and we feel privileged to be walking alongside them. At one of our sessions a couple of weeks ago, we had a session on mental health. And at the end of the session, one of the boys lingered, and I said, "Hey, do you want to have a chat?" He said, "Yeah." And he said, "How do I support a friend? I'm really worried about him. What do I do?" And he described what was going on with his mate. So we just talked a little bit about that. Me and my team are quite skilled at trying to, help young people sort of recognise the significance of their own friendship and the value of actually being present in their friends' lives as a safe person, but also just equipping this young person with some information about, suggested strategies to support his friend. And he walked out of there feeling a little bit more confident. About a month ago, we had the privilege of reconnecting with last year's group. We put on a Subway lunch and we invited the boys back to just meet the team again, and we just checked in with them. And as we were talking, a couple of the boys said, we just asked, "Yeah, how are you going? What's happening this year? And how are you boys doing?" And one of them said, "We're not getting into trouble as much." And it might sound like a really simple thing, but it's a big thing. Year 9, Year 10 boys getting in trouble affects the class, affects the community, draws time and attention from teachers who are already stressed and pushed and challenged. So to see these boys self-reflect that they're growing up, and they reported to us that they really loved the mentoring program. They wanted it to continue. It couldn't continue, but they wanted to continue. And we just could see that things had grown, and they were able to recall a couple of the sessions that we'd had, and it was this beautiful moment where we realised that we'd been part of their journey at a really significant moment in their life. Hence the school invited us back, because the school has seen that these boys have benefited from the program, and we're now working with a new group and we anticipate the same kind of results. Just a couple of other stories. One of our other schools is Yarra Hills Secondary in Mount Evelyn. And it's the first time we worked with this school. We got a government grant, local government grant, supported by the community as well. And in a recent session, our school facilitator there opened up a conversation about dads. And of a group of 14, 3 of the boys have a present dad in their life. 3 of the boys. I'm sorry. Why does this matter? We know that when dads are present, boys have better self-esteem, they do better in life. We know that mums feel supported. It's good for everyone when dads are present. Our mentors are not dads, not the boys' dads. They're adults who have chosen to walk alongside these boys for a particular point in time. And each week our team comes in and greets the boys by name and sees them and opens up conversations about topics that are relevant to these boys that they can't talk about with anyone else. And they can talk about their dads, and they can talk about their struggles, and they can talk about the things that they need to talk about, they need to process, they need to somehow understand a little bit better. And while our mentors cannot be their parents, our mentors play that role of affirming and encouraging and seeing them and laughing with them and at times crying with them. So I'm really proud of our team at Yarra Hills, because they're in a pretty interesting community there, pretty challenged community, some disadvantaged families and young people that are really struggling and families that are doing it tough. And our team turns up week after week and represents Christ in that school. One final story, we're also working with a school in Noble Park Secondary for the first time this year. And we are getting the best feedback we've ever got from the principal class and the wellbeing team about the behaviour of these boys. The school is saying that the boys' behaviour in class, in school, is measurably better. And the school absolutely loves the program and is asking about a girls' program and starting to talk about 2026. So these mentoring communities are making a difference, and I feel really privileged to be part of this journey. I'm running a few programs myself. In others, I'm just sitting back and watching my team do their thing. In others, I'm in the office while they're heading out and running programs. We have an amazing team, but we need your prayer. We need your support. And for those of you that do support us in prayer and financial support, and just showing interest, and I guess your invitation today is just demonstrative of your care and interest in us. Thank you. Keep it going. Just because we have a little bit of money in the bank now and we are not going bankrupt anymore, doesn't mean that the support needs are not there. They're still there, and particularly prayer for wisdom, prayer for the young people we're working with, prayer for the wellbeing team that we liaise with, prayer for the plans for next year as we start to navigate and look at our next year's schedule and program. This is an organisation that God inspired and He continues to guide. And I'm just on a journey with Him.